All right, everyone, it's the start of a new season, Season 6, Episode 1. Unfortunately, we lost an AFC Championship, um, but we have most of our players back, and the only ones that are out are the ones that weren't really main contributors. Maybe they made a play here or there, or they were good depth, or maybe they're on special teams, but nobody that's significant that's really going to lead that charge. None of them are out. And in fact, we actually got better because if you remember, for like the last 3 seasons, I had the same left guard and right guard that I kept signing every single year. It was Lakin Tomlinson and Gabe Jackson. Well, finally, a year where we did not sign them. And not only that, I actually found guys that I wanted to keep long term. So I signed left guard Peter Banks to a 7-year, $22.4 million contract. So really cheap for as good of an offensive lineman as he is. And then he's a power blocker, so he'll be good for our run. And I signed right guard Michael Brackett to a 7-year, $18.9 million contract. Again, really cheap for as good as he is. However, he's a pass blocking offensive lineman, so like his run block is really bad. So I moved him to right tackle. We're going to let him play a bit of that pass blocker on the right tackle where his run blocking is not going to hurt us too much. And then hopefully develop him more into a run blocking right tackle. Both of those guys are pretty young. I think they were 26. So that 7-year contract, we're going to have them for their entire prime career. And they can still develop a bit for us as well. With Michael Brackett moving to right tackle, I moved our current right tackle, Evan McKinley. I moved him to right guard, because he's actually he's good at pass protection. I think this is his. I think he's had 3 years in the league now, and he's given up 1 sack. Of course, that doesn't count QB pressures and knockdowns and all that, but he's only been responsible for 1 sack in the entire time that we've had him. So he's good at pass protection, but he's also good at run blocking. So I moved him to right guard, Michael Brackett to right tackle. So we now have a really, really good offensive line. In fact, our offensive line was already rated the best in the league. I think among all 5 starting linemen, we gave up a total of, I think it was 16 sacks for the entire year, which is really low among all 5. So then to be able to upgrade the line even further, our line is going to be really good this year. I let our fullback go, but he wasn't really what we needed out of a fullback, so we didn't really lose much there. I didn't sign a free fullback in free agency because the one that I offered ended up declining the contract, so we're just going to pick one up in the draft. That's fine. I did let our kicker go because he wanted a lot of money, and he wasn't worth as much money as he wanted. So I ended up signing kicker Michael Bagley to a 7-year, $5.25 million contract. Kind of cheap. Kickers usually want about double that, so I got him really cheap. And honestly, he's one of the best kickers that I've seen come through like free agency this entire series. So I think we got a heck of a deal with him there. So that's all for our off-season moves. Going into the draft here, obviously I said I want a fullback. I'm not sure where that's going to come from. There is a fullback that I identified that I'll draft in the 7th round probably, but I am looking at maybe tight ends or power backs that I can move to fullback. And actually, it might be a complete waste of a pick, but there's an offensive lineman rated as a 2nd-round talent who I think would actually be a really good blocking fullback. He's actually got a lot of speed, and his best stats are lead block and impact block. So I might actually think about drafting him in the 2nd round and seeing maybe how he does at fullback. And if not at fullback, then we'll at least have depth on the offensive line. I would really like an upgrade at wide receiver. However, that's not going to come from the draft. The only way I'm going to upgrade my wide receiver is if I end up trading for one. Which when we get to our first round pick, I'm going to see what's available, and then I might actually go through and look at trading for a wide receiver if I don't find anyone that I really want with that first round pick. Other than that, we're just hoping to get some depth that can either fill in when someone gets hurt, or maybe even develop into a player that can take over for, let's say I have a player that is really good, it's our starter and a key piece, but I can't afford to keep him. Well, if I draft someone at depth that can develop into that that guy that'll fill his hole, then I can kind of go with the cheaper option. So we have all the key pieces that we're going to get from the draft. Now it's all just about getting that depth and maybe developing some talent. So with that said, here we go with the 2024 NFL Draft. Actually, this is the 2025 NFL Draft. My bad.
The Broncos are now on the clock.
All right, so Broncos have the first overall pick. So let's see what kind of difference maker they get as far as what we'll have to deal with in our division. And that pick is coming in now. They picked a wide receiver. Looks like it'd be a pretty good rookie wide receiver. We'll just have to see if he develops into something special. Now, if that's the guy that I think it is, that guy can catch. He had A's across the board for every single type of catching. His physical skills weren't that great, but in terms of being able to catch the ball, he's probably one of the best to come through in a while. Washington goes with the defensive end.
The 49ers
and the
are
Cardinals
now
go
on
with
clock.
the outer linebacker. Just like in past drafts, this draft seems really deep for wide receivers, defensive linemen, and linebackers. All the other positions kind of weaken, so I don't know if
Jets are now on the clock.
we've just had the luck of the draw. It's just that those are always the positions that are the best in the draft, or if it's a matter of maybe EA Sports kind of didn't vary things up a little bit from draft to draft. So we'll have to see as this series progresses. As we get further on in the years,
Are now on the clock.
are there other positions that end up having really good draft classes? Last year we had that one draft class that had 3 really good quarterbacks. And of course, we grabbed 2 of them, one of them being what's going to be our franchise quarterback, and what could very well end up being the best quarterback in the league at some point.
The Patriots are now on the clock.
So we're here at the 7th pick. The Rams drafted a 76 overall strong safety, so he'll end up being a pretty good player in the league. Luckily, that's on the NFC side, not the AFC.
The Bengals are now on the clock.
Patriots defensive line. Again, that's like the 2nd or 3rd defensive lineman. Actually, that's at least the 3rd. Might even be the 4th defensive lineman off the board. And already, still up in those mid-70s. So again, deep draft. And there's defensive linemen, defensive tackles. Defensive ends and defensive tackles in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that are rated with the 1st and 2nd overall talent. So it's pretty deep. Unfortunately, cornerback is a position that hasn't been very deep. It's been pretty solid on getting, the 71 to 73 overall, but there hasn't been any true lockdown cornerbacks in the drafts. There are some good tight ends in this draft. None that I'm looking to draft as far as playing tight end for us, because I'm really satisfied with the tight ends we have. We have a star tight end for receiving, and then our 2nd tight end is a really good blocking tight end. So that's exactly what I want out of our tight ends. Again, if I draft a tight end this draft, it's probably to move them to fullback.
The Cowboys are now on the clock.
Again, another defensive end that has a high overall. Um, One thing I will consider doing is drafting um, that depth defensive lineman. Um, yeah, maybe I'll spoil some
The
plans right
Eagles
now.
are now on the clock.
Um, Joey Bosa, his contract is expiring the same time as Tyler Schwartz's contract is expiring, and it's a lot easier to get a defensive lineman than it is that franchise quarterback.
The
And
Browns are
Joey
now on the
Bosa's
clock.
we've done 5 years of football, and Joey Bosa has had 2 above-average years. And last year he stunk. He didn't do anything stat-wise. Performance in the game, maybe eating up some blocks or putting a little pressure on the quarterback.
The Buccaneers are now on the
He might
clock.
have been able to do that, but anything that shows up on a stat sheet, he wasn't doing. And I feel like, if you're not going to put up 14 to 18 sacks a year, I shouldn't be paying you the $135 million that I did over 7 years. That, and by the time his
Panthers are now on
contract
the
is
clock.
up, he's actually going to be close to, like, probably in his 30s. So I don't think I'm going to re-sign Joey Bosa. In fact, I might actually, in that last year, trade him away. So just be prepared for that coming up, because he's probably going to be the
Jaguars
casualty
are now on the clock.
from our roster in order to make sure we have the cap space to re-sign our quarterback, who's going to be very expensive. I can promise you that. So, and I've talked through a bunch of the picks now, but we've seen, all of them are in those 72 to
The
75
Vikings are now
overall.
on the clock.
In fact, as I say that, we have our first pick at a 69. So, Jaguars, so far you have the worst draft out of the 17 teams that have picked. And we have our pick coming up here in the 23rd, at 23. Again, this isn't our pick, by the way. Remember, I traded
The
away
Saints are now
our
on the
first
clock.
round pick for the Steelers' first round pick last year, which got us Tyler Schwartz. And then I turned around and traded them some things to get their first round pick. So our pick is actually going to be the 28th pick from round 2 on. But here in the first round, we actually have the
The
23rd
Bears are now
because
on
of
the
that
clock.
trade. So even if we didn't have their first round pick from this year, from that other trade, I still think we got a steal just getting Tyler Schwartz. He seems like the kind of player that you'd pretty much give up an entire draft for.
The Seahawks are now on the clock.
And the Bears draft a sub 70 overall player in the first round, so that might set them back a year or two.
The Chiefs are now on the clock.
Ooh, and the Chiefs drafted a I'm sorry, no, the Chiefs are on the clock. The Seahawks drafted a sub 70. So, yeah, it's some weak drafts, or a couple weak drafts from some teams so far this year. See how the Chiefs do. See what we'll be up
The
against.
Oklahoma City Nighthawks are
Okay,
now
so
on
they
the
went
clock.
defense this late in the first round. There's probably some better guys out there, but I can't call that a terrible pick. As I'm sitting here talking, it's our turn to pick. So let's see what's available. On the draft board, I have Deion Conley, Darren Bush, J.C. Robinson. J.C. Robinson looked like, I'll show you here. That's some very good physical stats. And someone that I thought about drafting. So, looks like we have guys that have first round talent, but nobody who's projected to go in the first round. I did say I needed that second string middle linebacker. Maybe this guy could be it. But from what I'm seeing from him, it's kind of hard to pass up J.C. Robinson there. We don't need a halfback at all, so I'm not even going to think about him. He's a decent right outer linebacker, but you know what? I'm a sucker for someone with good physical stats. We can develop those skills, but those physical stats you can't. So with this first pick, I'm going to take J.C. Robinson.
The Titans are now on the clock.
He ended up being a 76 overall. Not bad for our third or fourth string defensive tackle. Third overall talent in the draft. We got him at 23. So, pretty good pick. Again,
The Packers
his
are now on the
skills
clock.
are going to need some work, but his physical stats are going to be really good.
The Raiders are now on the clock.
Oh, and by the way, the Giants ended up beating the Texans in the Super Bowl. So, remember, we lost to the Texans, and then they went on and lost to the Giants. So, unfortunately, we
The Dolphins are now
I
on
don't
the
know.
clock.
I would have liked to see us win the Super Bowl. However, I think we have probably about a 5 to 6 year window to win that will be Super Bowl contenders before we really have to start rebuilding the team because of age.
The Falcons are now on the clock.
Yeah, I continue to draft well, as you can see from this draft. So as long as I continue to do that, that's going to extend our window. The whole reason that we're Super Bowl contenders is because of the drafts that we've had. So obviously you can see that the draft,
The Lions
building through
are
the
now
draft
on
can put you there. Now we have to continue to draft well so that as those guys either get too old and move on or get too expensive, we have guys that can fill in and we don't take that step back. If I start getting these 64 overall guys in the first round, we're not going to be
the
there.
clock. The Steelers are now on the clock.
Which, by the way, that pick so far puts the Falcons as the worst draft this year. So, sorry, Atlanta fans, but your team kind of dropped the ball there.
The Texans are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock.
Texans went with a wide receiver. Yeah, as far as our wide receivers go, we have quality wide receivers, but honestly, we don't have that star wide receiver. I re-signed.
The Broncos
What
are
was
now
his
on
name?
the clock.
I re-signed D'Angelo Kitchens to a 7-year contract last year. He's been our number one wide receiver, but he really should be a number 2 wide receiver. And I think if there's any position on our team that needs upgraded, it's that wide receiver position. So I don't know. Ooh, an 80 overall halfback, and he went in the second round. Man, 80 is the highest I've seen in all of our drafts so far. So that guy is going to be a stud, and we're going to have to play against him. Luckily, we have a defense that'll be able to handle him pretty well, I
Cardinals are
think,
now on
no
the
matter
clock.
how much he develops. Anyway, we're in the second round now, so let's go ahead and speed things up. Next user pick. I almost skipped
The
our pick.
Oklahoma City Nighthawks are now
So
on the clock.
we have the 30th pick, not the 28th. My bad. All right, what is available? Okay, so there's some wide receivers here that are available. These two guys have that first round talent, even though they're projected for the 4th round. So I could probably end up getting these guys in the 3rd round, or at least one of those guys. Ooh. I think I did look at this guy before. And actually, you know what? I'm going to draft this guy, and I'm going to move him to halfback. Or actually, did we resign Skandrick? I don't think we did. So my thinking is, I can move this guy to halfback. He can be our receiving back. Maybe I move Skandrick back to wide receiver, but you know, Scandrick, let me be clear. Scandrick did awesome for us last year at halfback when Nick Chubb went down for most of the year. But this guy has a ton of speed, a ton of agility, a ton of acceleration. You know, and he's short. He can get lost in the backfield, which, you know, in Madden that doesn't really matter. But our running backs, we have really good running backs, and I'm not going to be able to spend that much money keeping those guys. So Scandrick and Price, one of those guys is going to be the odd man out. So if I draft this guy, I can move Scandrick back to a wide receiver and then maybe justify keeping him or trading him away. Let's take a look at the tight end real quick, though. Yeah, I'm not going to pick the tight end over Spencer Jones. I'm not really seeing anybody else here that I want to take over Spencer Jones. So let's go ahead and take Spencer Jones, understanding that he's not going to play wide receiver for us. He's going to be a receiving back.
The Texans are now on the clock.
Ooh, even though he ended up being a 77 overall. Wow, okay. We got the number 2 and the number 3 overall talent so far in this draft. So as much as I keep saying other teams are losing the draft, I think we're winning the draft so far. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a good player for us. All right, next pick. Oh, we didn't have a third-round pick. I'm glad I didn't pass on him. All right, so remember I did say that I wanted to draft someone to move to fullback, which would be one of these 4 guys here. So D'Angelo Allen might actually end up being a decent third string guy for us, assuming, you know, maybe something happened to Spencer Price, like us trading away, or maybe I've moved Spencer Price to fullback. What about this guy? He actually, see, to me, this guy looks better on paper than the other guy does. His top skills are better. His physical skills are better. You know, he's faster, more agile, almost as strong. So I don't know. Where do we have a tight end here? Now, for the system we have, I prefer a blocking fullback, but the system says we should have a utility. So that the catch passing ability is most important, then running ability, and then blocking ability. Honestly, running and catching passes out of the backfield, you don't really. I haven't seen the fullback get that many opportunities. I'm talking like maybe 3 runs a year and like 8 catches a year. However, our fullback is almost always blocking when he's out there, so I don't understand why we wouldn't want someone with good blocking skills. And that's why I intend to get this guy, you know, later in the 7th round. But you know, none of these guys look like they have blocking ability, so we just kind of have to go off of strength and hope they're good enough. I kind of want to pick up these 2 guys. So I wonder if I can take this guy now and then grab him in the next round. Let's do that. We're going to take a gamble. This guy is a better pick than this guy talent-wise probably. But I'm going to trust the projected round of this guy going in the 5th and this guy going in the 6th. And we're going to hope we can get George Matthews later. So TJ Levine, we're going to pick you up.
The Texans
probably move you to fullback. So I'm not concerned about the 66 overall. What's his block? Ooh, his blocking's pretty bad. At least his lead blocking is. Pass and run block are okay. And his catch passing ability is sufficient. So his running and catch passing is sufficient for a utility fullback. He probably won't be a 70 overall or anything at fullback, maybe like a 68 or something, which is fine. But he doesn't have the blocking qualities that I want. So we'll see what we get out of George Matthews, and then I'll grab that fullback after that.
The Oklahoma City Nighthawks are now on the clock.
Assuming that guy's still available, and he's not. So actually, if you remember, I said George Matthews looked better than D'Angelo Allen, and it looks like another team agreed with me. They went ahead and picked him before. So we'll just go ahead and grab D'Angelo Allen and see how he looks at fullback, or maybe even a backup running back. Obviously a better runner because he's actually a halfback, but what's his catching abilities here? Catching traffic is okay. This guy cannot block at all, which means he's not going to work at fullback. Well, maybe he can be that third string halfback, and we'll see maybe how Price works. If not, that guy might get cut. And those things happen from the 5th round on.
All
right, 6th pick. And you know what? I kind of don't want to miss out on this fullback just in case, because I feel like he's probably going to be decent. So in 6th round, so whatever. I'll take him.
The Ravens are now on the clock.
Okay, so we at least are going to have a 67 overall fullback. You know, maybe that tight end ends up being a better fullback. And if not, you know, whatever. It's a fullback.
The Oklahoma City Nighthawks are now on the clock.
All right, so nobody else is on our draft board, which means I just go off of my scouting here. Ooh. Impact block and lead block. This isn't the guy that I was mentioning earlier that I thought would be, you know, might have a shot at being a good fullback. That guy had like a 4.8 speed, so this guy is much slower, but I'm curious. I am curious what this guy would be as a blocking fullback.
Are now on the clock.
He actually has a good dev trait, so yeah, we'll see. Again, 6th round, I don't even care. It's even if we end up cutting him, it's still fun to experiment. Oh, again, scouted. Okay, as you can see, there's nobody really worth picking up. We got our kicker as a free agent. I'm gonna trade this pick away. Maybe get like a 6th or possibly even a 5th round for next year. Okay, so we have some 6s, 168 and 169. So Jets and LA. Jets have been pretty bad for a while. But I do also remember some of the other NFC or AFC North AFC East teams picking pretty high as well, so they might have a chance of winning a few. So we'll go with this one. I mean, it's a 6th round. It's not like the top of the 6th and the bottom of the 6th is going to make that big of a difference between players. So anyway, that's our draft. I think we did pretty darn good, even with wasting the last like 3 picks on a potential fullback. And actually, let's go through and see how those guys work. You know, you get a little sneak peek at our guys overall. So, you know, one of those rare looks behind the curtain. Okay, so D'Angelo Allen was our rookie. Sean Price, what's your blocking ability here? Pretty bad. Let's see. You're a better lead blocker, but still pretty bad. Yeah. And I think I'm going to go ahead and move Scandrick back to wide receiver so we can bring Spencer over to halfback. Speaking of which, Well, you know what? Maybe we'll keep him as a receiving back and then trade him. See if we can maybe get a better, um, receiver. All right, Spencer Jones. Let's see what your abilities are at wide receiver first. So his catching is okay, but his route running is pretty miserable. So yeah, he's gonna be. Oh, what's his? We'll find out when we move him. Can't remember what his ball carrying vision and all that is. And tight end, so Levine. And you are rookie. Yeah, you are a rookie. Let's look at your stats. So let's see, 89, 70 pass block. It's not bad. Probably build off of that. His run block is bad though. Even with his high dev trait, I don't think this guy's ever going to turn into someone that we can really use at offensive lineman. So I have no problem at all moving this guy over to fullback and going from there. Alright, let's see how our fullbacks are. Okay, so TJ Levine did end up being that, I thought maybe a 68, so he ended up being a 69 overall. This guy's a 56. It's obviously the strongest. Best pass blocker. Not the best run blocker, actually. Let's see. Not the best lead block either. But does have the best impact block, so he can at least hold on to his blocks. Yeah, what to do about this guy? I guess let's just throw him at left tackle and see what happens with him. You know, who knows, maybe someone's interested in him, even though he's not that good. As for fullback, man, I really like a blocking fullback, but TJ Levine can't block, and this guy's not that great of a. Well, I mean, he's better at carrying the ball, I guess. Slower though. Because of course, if you're handing it to your fullback, you're probably not expecting, you know, a 30-yard run down the field, and even on a check down, you know, maybe you get 8 to 10. And he's not even that well. Honestly, a fullback's probably not going to be out there on too many passing plays. So we can either try to develop this guy into a good utility back, even though he's slower, or try to develop this guy into a blocking fullback. And honestly, you can develop skills, but you can't really develop physical ability. So I guess we're gonna go with TJ Levine at fullback. And I'm not going to be able to get anything for this guy, so I'm just going to cut him. Let's look at our left tackles here. So I want this guy to be a decent backup right tackle. Alright. I'm going to move Quincy Thomas to backup right tackle. We'll keep that that rookie left tackle that has a good dev trait. Then maybe see if we can get something for our current backup right tackle. What else do we draft? Oh, the defensive tackle. So, yeah, he's going to be our third string guy. Unfortunately, he only had a normal dev trait, I think. Yeah, so, you know, maybe he can replace Blackburn, but remember, we did just give Blackburn a 7-year contract, so he'll be around for a while. But yeah, all right. Enough giving you a look behind the scenes. Remember, I wanted to keep that hidden so that you can cheer more for the guys that are producing and less for, you know, just knowing that someone that has a certain overall. I am curious. Oh, that's our draft. Oh, right. We can go to NFL. I'm curious who the best. Oh, it's probably the 80. The Broncos got that 80 overall guy. Yeah. So, and actually moving. Oh, we didn't look at Spencer Jones at a halfback. Yeah, moving Spencer Jones to halfback put him at an 81, which actually made him the #1 overall guy, even though he was #2 when we picked him at wide receiver. So yeah, we got the #1 guy, #3 guy. Here's that other, or no, he was picked earlier. I don't remember what that guy's name was, but he was picked probably in the 6th round. He was a halfback. Let's go to 6. Sweet. All right, what was his name? Maybe he was drafted in the 5th round. Matthews, I think. Yeah, George Matthews. So how did this guy end up being? 89 speed, 83 strength, which would have been nice. Actually, can I? Yeah, let's just go to his card. There we go. What is his blocking? Okay, so his blocking was absolutely terrible. So yeah, I mean, either way, we ended up cutting the guy that I drafted, I think, right? So yeah, anyway, I don't know. I think I had a good draft. Probably, I think the best draft out of anybody. And this year we didn't even have multiple first-round picks, so I'm happy with myself being able to continue to draft well. And I think in the next 3 or 4 years, you're going to see that a draft like this helps us stay one of the top teams in the league. Anyway, that'll be the end of our draft episode. Next episode will be one of the first games of the year. I'm tired of doing the first game of the year because we hear the same commentary about how, oh, we woke up ready to go and couldn't sleep in the fight. And like, okay, maybe have some different lines for the first game of the year. So maybe I'll do like the second game so that we don't have to listen to that for the 6th time. So yeah, thanks for watching. Tune in tomorrow to check out episode 2, which will be our first broadcasted game of the year. Maybe I'll even see what our primetime games are. If we have 4 primetime games, that'll just be our 4 games that I broadcast. So anyway, again, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.